Rather than lads, welcome back to Kossi's Arsenal podcast. My name is Kossi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in all parts of the world. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a brand new video. We are diving into deadline day. Now, Arsenal, a couple of deals are being discussed right now. Danilo, Douglas Luiz, Mikola Modric is off, as well as Wilfried Zaha and a couple of other deals that I'm going to be telling you about. But one thing I'm very sure of here, lads, is that we will get some deal over the line. We are not discussing any easy deals. Aston Villa and Palmeiras are not willing to sell any of their players in the last hours of the window. But I can confirm that we are in negotiations and we have agreed personal terms with a new midfielder. So make sure you're tuned into Kossi's Arsenal podcast, because anything that happens in the next hours, I'll be definitely able to let you know. Now, hit the like button for us. Let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Also, subscribe to the podcast. Let's get the transfer window out with up to 60,000 subscribers. That will be absolutely massive. And do you like Douglas Luiz? What are your thoughts on Douglas Luiz? In the comment section below, let's form a discussion about this guy. Now, forget the fact that he brought in a straight corner and it went in the back of the net against Arsenal. That is no reason to hate him, and that is no reason to be excited about him either. But according to what you've seen, about him playing for Aston Villa, are you convinced he's a good defensive midfielder? Are you convinced he would be a very good central midfielder, very good passer of the ball, another confident player in possession? So would you rather sign Douglas Luiz? Is he a player that you feel if Arsenal got him, he will be an upgrade, and he would actually, his signing would actually mean without Thomas Partey and without Mohamed Elneny, we are safe? Conversation in the comments box below, because after a video, I will be down there in the comments trying to reply to your thoughts. Now, let's get into it. Let's start off with a news early morning that Arsenal had submitted another bid for Danilo. Now, that was not true. Arsenal have not submitted another bid to Palmeiras for Danilo. Our initial bid, which was around £20 million, according to Goal Brazil, was actually turned down, and Arsenal are walking away from that situation. Now, Palmeiras have made themselves very clear they do not want to sell, but should they be forced into selling, it is going to be around 35 to 50 million pounds. Arsenal believe that is too much, a figure for the young Brazilian. However much they appreciate him, however much they've followed him for some time, the money is too much. And personally, I also believe to pay 50 million to Palmeiras for Danilo, would rather pay 50 million to Wolverhampton Wanderers to get Ruben Neves out of there. So, in my opinion, good decision by Arsenal as we enter the deadly hours of the transfer window. I think that's what they're trying to do. All clubs are trying to keep their players at the moment. So I do not blame Palmeiras for not letting Danilo go, because they will be saying, Arsenal, you had all June, you have all July to come in for Danilo and give us enough time to replace him. You have not done that. You've waited until the deadline day and you're coming in to take our star man. How do we replace him, and when do we replace him? We are not selling Danilo to you. So that deal is off currently. Not totally off, because it is deadline day and Arsenal are really mad about signing a midfielder. So, but at the moment, I can confirm that deal is at a standstill. We are not pursuing that deal for now. But tell you what, the deal we are pursuing currently is Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa, and that is why I have asked you whether you would take Douglas Luiz at the beginning of this video. Now, Luiz is a player that has been starting from the bench this season. They do not want to sell him. That is Aston Villa. They made themselves very clear. They would love to keep the player. Now, Arsenal are not the only club interested at the moment. Atletico Madrid is also another big club interested in the player, including Chelsea as well. Information I am having here shows that Aston Villa will not let him go if they do not get a replacement. The replacement they're looking at is Leon Dendoncker at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, listen, so it is kind of it's kind of a ripple effect here. What we are trying to do is kind of a ripple effect. Arsenal want Douglas Luiz. Villa do not want to sell, but if they get a replacement in Leon Dentonga, then they will sell him. Wolverhampton Wanderers are also looking at Traore. So if Wolverhampton Wanderers get Traore, if they get Traore, they can let Dentonga go. And if Villa get Dendonka, then they can let Douglas Luiz go. So it's kind of a ripple effect that, one deal affecting the other. But the positive part of this story, lads, it comes in from Fabrizio Romano, and it shows that Arsenal have agreed now personal terms with Douglas Luiz. He has refused to sign a new contract with Aston Villa. They had an agreement initially with the player in January for him to sign a 3-year deal and stay at the Villa Park. Since then, the player has changed his mind. He wants to go and he wants to leave the club. Clubs in Italy are interested, including Juve. I don't think Juve will actually come in on deadline day, but he has had a lot of interest from Italy, from Spain. I've just talked about Atletico Madrid interested in him, and I've also just talked about Arsenal interested in him. One thing I would say here with Douglas Luiz is, although he's a name that we've just talked about in a space of 1 or 2 months, he's not a player Arsenal are abruptly going into. It's not a deal Arsenal abruptly going into. It's a deal that we wanted to do in January. You remember when Thomas Partey picked up that crazy injury? Arsenal wanted to get in a midfielder. Douglas Luiz was one of those players that we were looking at. However, Aston Villa at the time refused to sell the player in winter. I mean, they've been very, very optimistic about him staying. They've been very, very optimistic about him signing a new deal. And I think all these clubs that have been, trying to provide company and, provide threat have always been, not serious about him until right now when Aston Villa have received 2 bids on their table, one from Atletico Madrid, worth £20 million. That is what I've seen. And the other deal is from Arsenal, worth £15 million, guaranteed payments. I think there will be some add-ons to drive the deal to around £20 million. So it is not easy at the moment with Douglas Luiz, but the positive side, like I said, from Fabrizio Romano, personal terms now are agreed there. Just like I've said, personal terms are agreed on a 4-year deal with a Brazilian player. Now, it is believed that Edu's Brazilian connection will try to get the player and the deal over the line. Agents are trying to push the deal. They're trying to push Aston Villa to get that deal over the line. The other positive part about this story, lads, apart from us being apart from us bidding 20 million already and agreeing personal terms, is that Leon Dendonka has been given permission, according to The Athletic now, Leon Dendonka has been given permission to do his medicals at Aston Villa. So Wolverhampton Wanderers have accepted the fee that has been offered by Aston Villa for Leon Dendonka. Now Aston Villa are definitely going to be selling Douglas Luiz. We don't know where, because Aston Villa look like they're still in the same kind of bracket when it comes to competition. Villa will be trying to get themselves into the top 8 on the table. And of course, Arsenal will be trying to stay above in the top 6 of the table. So I think if there is a small chance that Villa can sell Douglas Luiz abroad, they will try to take that opportunity. And that is why I think it's not going to be a very, very, very easy deal. But anyway, positives there with Douglas Luiz. Personal terms are agreed. Leon Dendonka deal is also getting closer and closer. That information comes in from a very authentic source. That is The Athletic. So we are waiting for in the next hours. We are waiting to see what is going to happen with Douglas Luiz. Does he move to Arsenal? Does he move to Atletico Madrid? That is what we're waiting for. But in my opinion, it is going to be very, very fascinating arrest. Now, let's get to Douglas Luiz and see what his match of as a player. According to the transfer market website, he definitely plays as a central midfielder, but the other role he can play in is a defensive midfielder. This season already has played 1 game as a defensive midfielder and already 2 games as a central midfielder. So 3 games, 2 as a central midfielder, 1 as a defensive midfielder. And I think with Mikel Arteta and how he has revolutionized that defensive midfield role, Douglas Luiz is a player that we can definitely go for. Because, listen, he's not one of the best tacklers in the game. He's not one of the best, interceptors in the game. If you look at his statistics, interceptions, tackles, and blocks, he's up. He's among. He ranks in the 43rd, 42nd percentile among those metrics. So literally, that means it shows you that his tackling is not elite. His blocks are not late, and also his interceptions are not very, very late. So the question is, why are Arsenal trying to sign him over other players? The reason is his holding role, his holding ability, having the ball, distributing it, and also passing it is very, very late. We are talking about a player who's dribbling, who's passing, whose ball distribution is among the 70th, the 75th, 74th percentile. Literally, that means that among those metrics, he's actually doing very, very well. Now, one advantage that I've seen with this deal, Mikel Arteta has worked with Douglas Luiz before at Manchester City, and I've been looking at a couple of reports claiming that one of the strong points of this transfer window has been Mikel Arteta pointing at players that he understands, players that understand him as a manager, players that understand what he wants to do, and also players that he understands what their game and what their style is all about. So Douglas Luiz worked with Mikel Arteta at Manchester City. He's now at Aston Villa. City wanted him, I think that was in January. I think he has been on Manchester City's list for a defensive central midfielder. If they didn't get Calvin Phillips, I'm very, very optimistic Douglas Luiz would have been the man. So currently, they've got Calvin Phillips. Douglas Luiz can move to, Arsenal Football Club. Brazilian, so the Brazilian connection, the likes of Gabriel Jesus moving into that Arsenal side, the likes of Gabriel Magalhaes could attract him. But they're also talking about Arsenal having a Brazilian technical director in Edu. We're talking about a manager that he's actually worked with at Manchester City. And we're also talking about him joining a project where he's not going to be a fringe player, where he's not going to be a second option. But if he can't come into this Arsenal side, establish himself very, very well, he will be a starter. No question about that. In my opinion, it's a very good deal. Although Arsenal have just made themselves very clear this season that they don't want to spend a lot of money on players they would rather get for free in the upcoming summer. I think it's a very, very good deal. 24 years of age only, left with 1 year on his contract. I think that is what Aston Villa are looking at. They have gone to let Douglas Luiz go on a free. It doesn't benefit us in any way. We can get 25, we can get 20 million pounds in Douglas Luiz, and then get around 15 or 17 million pounds, and add to that, go to Wolverhampton Wanderers, get Leon Dendoncker, and that will be an absolutely very, very good deal. So for me, look, Villa don't want to sell, but they don't lose anything. They already have brought in Boubacar Kamara from Marseille in that defensive midfield role. If they get Leon Dendoncker, couple him with Boubacar Kamara, then the likes of Joe McGinn, Filippo Coutinho, Jacob Ramsey, I think they have a decent team in there. They have a decent midfield in there. There is nothing to be worried about. But as an Arsenal player, there are a few things that you will have to know about Douglas Luiz. It's a player that doesn't really score many goals. For Aston Villa, 116 appearances, 7 goals and 8 assists. So he's one player that you will find playing almost every game for your club, but he won't be scoring as many and assisting as many games as possible. One thing, and the other thing you will need to know, and I think this is something that Arsenal fans will really love about him, is his durability. Very durable as a player. He can, he's been averaging 34 to 36 games per campaign for Aston Villa. Literally, that means that whenever Thomas Partey is not around, he will be available. And also, the other thing is that when Thomas Partey leaves that role permanently, Douglas Luiz will be a very, very reliable guy in that role. So I think, look, I looked at Albert Samble-Lokonga playing against Aston Villa. He played very, very well. His ball progression is okay. His ball passing is okay. But I think you need someone with experience. You need someone who has lived the experience of playing in that role, especially in a single pivot. And I think Douglas Luiz is a very, very good shout. So Arsenal working on that deal. I will be letting you know, or if anything happens in that regard. Personal terms already are agreed. Chelsea in there as well. Atletico Madrid in there as well. We are looking at that player. All of us are looking at that player. Now, Fabrizio Romano again continues to say that Arsenal are really pushing to to sign Douglas Luiz, but Douglas Luiz currently is also now pushing really hard to join Arsenal Football Club. For me, this is a deal that Douglas Luiz will definitely want to do as a player. You're talking about going to Arsenal. You're talking about going to a club that has won 5 of their 5 opening games. That means they have a project going on. That means they have something very lively going on. You're talking about a player joining a club that is in Europe, in the Europa League. So that means you will have the minutes, whether Partey and Elneny are back to fitness, you will have the minutes. I think when it comes into this Arsenal side, the only question will be, does he start ahead of Thomas Partey when Thomas Partey is back? But with Mohamed Elneny, I think he naturally starts ahead of Mohamed Elneny. Because, look, Elneny has 1 year left on his contract. And the fact that he's picked up that long-term injury, it means that last year, that 1 year, that last year of his contract with Arsenal is going to be spent, on the sidelines, in the sick bay. So Douglas Luiz comes in for me. Definitely. I won't be very surprised if he comes in and he throws Thomas Partey out of the team. I think Mikel Arteta understands the essence, the advantage of playing a similar team. He's done it for 5 consecutive games. It's only injuries that are actually forcing him to make changes with Alexander Zinchenko, with Martin Odegaard, with Thomas Partey, with Mohamed Elneny. But he's a manager that is 100% happy to get all his players fit and play the same team for at least 10 consecutive games. So Douglas Luiz, very durable, very good passer of the ball, very good when in control. He's not going to give you're not going to see a lot of blind passes for him. It's a deal I want Arsenal to get done so that he can play for us against Man United. With the likes of Casemiro, with the likes of Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes, you need a player like Douglas Luiz alongside Xhaka in that midfield pivot. So now, if you don't know how he plays, if you don't understand what the player is all about, think about Jorginho at Chelsea. That is the kind of guy that we are talking about. A very, very, a guy who is always constantly on the ball, constantly passing the ball, and on 1 or 2 occasions, he will see a different picture and will pick out a very, very deadly pass, but not always the time. His role and his game is tilted towards equal ball distribution, making sure that we are always in possession and making sure that the team has total control and absolutely dominant in the midfield area. So Douglas Luiz moving very fast. Personal terms are great. No argument between Wolves, no argument between Aston Villa and Arsenal. No argument between Aston Villa and the player for him to leave. But should they give him the permission? Should they give us the permission to sign him? That deal will be done over the next few hours. Now, like I said, Danilo deal off. Mikhailo Modric as well. The information that I'm getting is that deal is also off as for now. Arsenal will only go for 1 player, and that is a midfielder, most likely Douglas Luiz. So Mikhailo Modric, despite agreeing personal terms yesterday with the player, we have failed to agree on a price with Shakhtar Donetsk. Shakhtar do feel Mikhailo Modric is an important player of their squad. They want to keep him 100%. They want to retain his services. And also they're saying if anyone is going to be signing him, then it will be in excess of £40 million. Now, Arsenal do not believe that much money is worth paying for Mikhail Modric and his services, so they've decided to walk away of that deal. The Wilfried Zaha deal is also off currently. Do not expect me to talk about Wilfried Zaha and joining Arsenal. Chelsea have also not tabled any formal offers. Patrick Vieira confirming there that he's very confident that deal will not happen. So Wilfried Zaha will be staying at Crystal Palace. That is the information I'm getting. But the other deal that is also very close is Hector Bellerin to FC Barcelona. Now, Barca and Arsenal are in talks to get the Bellerin deal off the line. There are chances, according to Charles Watts, that this deal doesn't happen and Bellerin stays at the Emirates Stadium, but those chances are very, very slim. So Betis and Barcelona are the two clubs that could sign him. Betis only want to sign him. Real Betis want to only sign him on a free. Barcelona would be willing to get to part with a few coins, probably 5 to 10 million. Probably that would be what they are willing to part with. The question here for me, lads, is always and has always been: when will Hector Bellerin permanently move out of Arsenal? I'm really surprised that Barcelona want him. And if they can take him and do a good job with him, especially Xavi, I will be very, very amused with his abilities to turn players, turn players' careers around, and turn poor players into good players. My problem was always, if he cannot take a throw in, he cannot play for Arsenal. But with Barcelona, they have already let go of Sergiño Dest to AC Milan on a season-long loan deal with a buy option until 2027. So I understand they will need a right back. Marcos Alonso will be going the other way as a left back in the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang deal. And Hector Bellerin will be the guy to replace Sergiño Dest should Barcelona and Arsenal have a total agreement there. So a lot is happening now. There is a bit there. There is a bit for Douglas Luiz from Arsenal and Atletico Madrid. Personal terms agreed with Douglas Luiz by Arsenal. No deals for Danilo. No deals for Mikhail Modric. No deals for Wilfried Zaha. No deals for any other players currently. Unless something happens, unless something changes in the last few days, in the last few hours, I will be able to let you know. Cody Gakpo, a couple of people have been asking me about Cody Gakpo. Gakpo is now going to stay with PSV Eindhoven. You cannot rule out a deal for both Sangare and Gakpo in the last few hours, but PSV feel they're so confident Gakpo and Sangare will both stay in the Netherlands this season. Hit the like button for us. Subscribe to the podcast as well. A lot of transfer news is coming in. Your opinions are very, very much appreciated in the comment box. And of course, you can follow us on all our socials. Kosi Arsenal on Twitter, Kosi11 and 90 more on TikTok. You can also find us on Facebook on Kosi's Arsenal Podcast, and of course on YouTube, the podcast that you always watch. 90 more, Kosi's Arsenal Podcast and Kosi's Arsenal and Kosi's Kosi Talks Football. I'll speak to you right in the next one if anything should happen.